Germany's energy future, right? It's a hot topic, and we're going to dig right into it.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is Germany's got these huge goals for renewable energy, but their system, the EEG,
Right, the EG
is
is...
going away in 2026. So we're talking about a complete do-over of their whole electricity market.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And we've got the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action,
Yeah.
the BMWK.
BMWK, right?
They've put out this paper, and it's their vision, right?
Okay.
But then we have the German Wind Energy Association, the BWE,
Of course, the BW.
and they're not exactly thrilled with everything.
Oh, and they're the ones with the wind farms, right?
Exactly.
One of the things they point out is that this paper kind of glosses over grid flexibility.
Okay, grid flexibility. Tell me more about that, because I don't think
Yeah.
about that when I'm turning on the lights.
So it's like this. When the sun shines, when the wind blows, great. But what happens when the wind stops or the sun goes down?
Yeah.
You got to keep those lights on, right?
Yeah.
That's where grid flexibility comes in. You've got to be able to just seamlessly switch between energy sources.
So it's like a giant backup battery for your country.
Yeah, a giant backup battery for the whole country. And the BWE is saying, look, if you don't get this right, then all this other market stuff that you're proposing in this paper, it's not going to work. And they've got a few ideas,
Right.
like dynamic grid fees.
Okay.
So instead of paying the same price for electricity all the time, what if it changed throughout the day based on demand?
Oh, interesting. So, like, if everybody's running their air conditioning at 3:00 p.m.,
Exactly. The price goes up.
Yeah.
But if you wait till later,
you might save some money.
you might save some money.
Very cool.
And it kind of gets people thinking about their energy use.
Right.
They also want to see the regulations streamlined, make it easier to develop these energy storage solutions, get them up and running.
Yeah, because if you could store all that extra energy when the sun's blazing or the wind's blowing, you can use it later.
Right, exactly. And right now, it's like they've got the technology, but the regulations are holding them back.
Interesting.
It's a barrier.
Yeah, okay. So that's a big sticking point for the BWE.
It is.
But let's dive into what the BMWK is actually proposing.
Okay.
So they've got these 4 options for how renewable energy is going to get funded in this new system, right?
Yeah, you've got your 4 options for potential roads to go down for their energy future. It's a bit of a choose your own adventure, but the stakes are kind of high.
Right. Very high stakes. So what are they thinking?
Well, they're looking at a sliding market premium, but like with a safety net, and then you've got a model where producers get paid based on how much energy they actually make. Then there's one where it's fixed, no matter how much energy is produced.
Regardless.
Yeah, regardless.
Wow.
And then finally, they're considering a capacity payment system.
Okay, so a lot of different options on the table.
A lot of options.
What does the BWE think about all of that? Where do they stand on these different paths?
Here's where it gets interesting. The BMWK seems to be leaning toward the models where the payouts are fixed, right? The production independent ones.
Okay.
But the BWE, they're not on board at all.
Really?
Yeah, they're saying, hold on a second. These models, they're not really tested, and
Yeah.
there could be some serious downsides.
See, because on the surface, a fixed payout sounds kind of good.
Right.
Like, why are they so worried about that?
So their big concern is that these models, they're based on what they call theoretical calculations,
Theoretical calculation.
not actual real-world data.
Oh,
And they're worried that if you base everything on these what-if scenarios, you're going to end up with problems.
okay. So it's like a recipe that looks amazing, but then you try to make it,
Exactly.
and it's a disaster.
Yeah, a total flop. And to prove their point, they actually pointed to this analysis from the German Renewable Energy Federation, the BEE.
The BE.
And this analysis, it shows that there could be this gap between what the models say a wind farm will produce
Right.
and what actually happens in the real world.
So the model says, oh, it's going to generate this much.
Exactly.
And then in reality,
it's a different number.
it's a different story.
Yeah, and that difference, that's what has the BWE worried.
So those theoretical models, right, if they're not quite matching up with what's actually happening,
Right.
what could that mean? Like, what kind of real-world problems are we talking about?
Okay, so think about it. You're a bank, someone walks in, wants a loan, they're going to build this big wind farm.
Big project.
Yeah, but the bank needs to know they're going to get their money back, right?
Makes sense.
But now you bring in these models where it's like, well, we don't know how much energy it's going to produce.
Yeah.
Suddenly that loan's looking a little risky.
It's how do you get a mortgage if you don't have a steady paycheck?
Exactly. It's that uncertainty.
Lenders don't like that.
No, they don't. And it's not just the lenders. The BWV, they're saying this could scare off investors too, you know?
Yeah.
Especially smaller investors. They were really drawn to that sliding market premium because it was predictable.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I kind of know what I'm getting into.
Exactly. But this throws in all this uncertainty,
Right.
and that could make it harder for smaller companies to compete.
Hmm.
And, the BWE, they actually got feedback directly from banks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's not exactly a glowing review of these production independent models.
Okay, so what are the banks saying? Give me the inside scoop.
They are worried, let me tell you.
Yeah.
The BWE says banks are really concerned about how complicated these models are. Like, what if there are errors? The risk just goes way up.
And when the risk goes up,
Everything gets more expensive.
right, interest rates, all that.
Exactly. And that's a huge problem, right? Because if financing these projects gets too expensive,
It's counterproductive.
it is. It's like you're trying to move forward, but you're stuck.
It's a tough spot to be in.
For sure. But, the BWE didn't just come to complain.
They wouldn't do that.
No, they came with a solution, a counter proposal.
Okay, so what's their alternative? What are they suggesting?
It's clever, actually. They're proposing this kind of hybrid approach.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
It takes the existing model, the production-based one,
Okay.
but then it adds in some safeguards so it's not so volatile, for investors.
So a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new.
Exactly. They call it a production-based contract for difference, a CFD,
A CFT.
with a market value corridor and volume guarantees. I know, it sounds complicated,
It does sound a little complicated.
but bear with me.
Okay.
Basically, producers, they still get paid for how much electricity they make,
Okay.
but there's a price range.
So there's a cap and a floor. It can't go too high, can't go too low.
You got it. So you still have that incentive to generate a lot of energy.
You're still rewarded for producing more.
But it's not going to go crazy on the price swings.
And that makes investors feel better.
Exactly. Now, those volume guarantees,
Yeah, we haven't talked about those yet.
that's like insurance, right?
Okay. Insurance for who?
The energy producers, even if the price tanks completely,
Which can happen.
it does. There's still guaranteed some payment for a certain volume.
So they're not just left out to dry if the market takes a downturn.
Right, exactly. It's about creating a system where these producers can actually thrive, not just survive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the BWE, they argue this wouldn't just be good for investors, but it would be less disruptive overall.
It's not such a shock to the system.
Exactly, more of a gradual change.
So if you're Germany, looking at all of this,
Right.
what does the BWE say is really essential for making this whole energy transition work?
Collaboration, that's a big one. They really want to see policymakers, industry folks, the financial people all working together.
Everybody at the table.
Exactly. And they keep coming back to grid flexibility.
Yeah, that seems to be a key theme here.
It's foundational, If you don't have that, nothing else really matters.
It's like trying to conduct an orchestra.
Okay, I like
If
that.
you don't have a conductor, you're just going to get a lot of noise.
Yeah, it's not going to be music to anyone's ears.
Yeah, you need that conductor to make it all work together.
Absolutely.
So we've got these different points of view, different ways of looking at this whole challenge, but it seems like both the BMWK and the BWE, they agree on one big thing.
Yeah, what's that?
Germany's got to go big or go home, right? This is a total system change. It's not just like tweaking a few things here and there.
Yeah, this is about how they think about energy from the ground up, How they make it, how they move it around, how people use it.
It's a whole new world of energy.
It is, and that's what makes this so important. We're not just talking about, the technical stuff here.
Right.
This is about their economy, their environment.
Their future.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Huge. And what's interesting, listening to all this,
Yeah.
there's no easy answer.
It'd be nice if there was, but no.
It's complicated.
It is.
You got to balance being ambitious with being, realistic.
You can't just jump in head first.
Right.
You got to think about the practical side of things.
And what's fascinating to me,
Yeah.
this isn't just a debate happening in some government building somewhere.
It's not just for the politicians to figure out.
This affects everybody.
It does. Everyone in Germany has a stake in this.
So that brings us to that final thought we like to leave you with.
Okay, hit me with it.
The BMWK, the BWE, they're figuring out the best way forward.
Right.
But it's really up to everyday people in Germany to make this energy transition happen.
It is. It goes beyond just changing a light bulb or buying an electric car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here's the question for everyone out there listening. What role can you play in all of this? As an individual, as part of your community, how can you make Germany's energy future more sustainable, more resilient?
Is it about new technology? Is it pushing for different policies? Maybe it's about finding ways to use less energy yourself.
Maybe it's all of that.
Right. Maybe it's a mix.
We want to hear what you think, because this isn't something that's being decided for people. It's something that's being shaped by people.
And that's a really powerful thing.
It really is. We're all behind the wheel here, driving toward this cleaner, greener future.
And that's something worth thinking about.